Then she said something like, "Great, goodbye Commander," then I ran all the way. Over here. Alexandra gaped at me, her hazel eyes round as marbles. Dr. Morsi has control over New Japan and Taiwan. I guess that would explain what happened to the others. What are we gonna do about this? What do you? I cut off suddenly when I glanced over Alexandra's shoulder. The door was open. I had closed it behind me. I hadn't seen anyone come in or open it, so how could it be? Olwen, I hissed through gritted teeth. I shot up out of the bed, hoping to catch her before she did whatever she hoped to do with her newfound information. If she tells Kathleen what I had overheard, I won't see the light of day again. I charged out the door only to find the halls empty. Curse you, Olwen, why can you turn invisible? Sage, Alexandra cried, running out of her room after me. What if she tells Dr. Morsi? I won't let that happen, I said, frantically trying to think of a way to find her. I need to track her somehow. Then a brilliant idea struck me like a hover car. I learned a new trick just a few days ago, and it was perfect for this situation. I focused all my energy on the image of a certain creature. What it looked like, what it felt like, how it smelled. Or at least, how I thought it smelled. And then I felt my bones breaking and reforming, my ears lengthening, my clothes transforming. Alexandra screamed, but I ignored her. I turned my nose to the air, sniffing around for Olwen's scent. I quickly caught it, shampoo with a hint of mint, and it was trailing down the hall to my left. I barked at Alexandra, whose look of horror was slowly transforming into curiosity, then bounded down the hall. The scent was getting stronger the further I ran. The sound of my claws hitting the floors echoed through the hall. But then the smell abruptly cut off. I backtracked, realizing that Olwen must have turned into the game room to the left. Olwen, you little son of a... I muttered, shifting back into a human and grabbing the doorknob. I could hear voices inside, but I couldn't pick up any words even when I pressed my ear to the door. Taking a deep breath, I turned the knob and opened the door, expecting the worst. Instead, I found the eyes of all the rebels. Staring at me. Sage, Harvey said, leaning against the wall. Glad you could join us. What did you tell them? I demanded, eyeing Olwen. I told them the whole story, Olwen said, crossing her arms and raising an eyebrow. Did you ever intend to tell us? Dario asked. I threw my hands up in the air, exasperated. Seriously people, I literally just figured this out. Are you really gonna hold this against me? No, we're not gonna hold it against you, Aiden said. We're going to hold it against Kathleen Morsi. Just then, Alexandra burst into the room, panting and sputtering. Olwen, she gasped, don't tell anyone, we can work this out. She trailed off when she noticed the eyes of everyone else now on her. Did I miss something? I crossed my arms. Oh, nothing, only everyone plainly admitting that they don't trust me. Wouldn't you trust her? Dario sighed. We never said we didn't trust. Alexandra's brows knitted and she turned towards the others. Guys, she said, Sage has been here for more than a month. Why? Her, it's just that she learned something very important and it took Olwen spying on her for us to know about it. I scoffed. Excuse me, I already told you, I just barely figured this out. I was going to tell you guys, but you didn't even give me a chance. Alright, stop fighting, Alexandra said, speaking before anyone else could argue. We gotta stop disagreeing and talk about an even bigger problem. Everyone went quiet. Guilt quickly replaced the angry or betrayed looks on people's faces. Myself included. Good, Alexandra said. Now, what are we gonna do about this? Aiden clapped his tongue. Isn't it obvious? We all looked at him, confusion written on everyone's faces. We run away, Aiden said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. When no one said anything he continued. Oh come on guys, it's the obvious solution. If we run away, Dr. Morsi can't use us. Alright, I said quickly. I'm in. What? Jace cried. We can't run away. Dr. Morsi gave us refuge. If we run away we'd be betraying her and all she's given us. Plus, how do we know Sage heard right? Do you take me for a fool? I demanded. I know what I heard. Look people, Olwen said, if Morsi is really slowly taking over the world, then us just sitting here isn't gonna do anything. We need to act, and I believe the best way to do that is to take away Morsi's best asset. Us. I don't know, Dario said skeptically. What if we get caught? Dr. Morsi would never forgive us. It's worth the risk, Alexandra said. It's better than sitting here and waiting for Dr. Morsi to use us. I say we do it. The room went up in an uproar, everyone screaming to get their opinion across. I must admit, I was yelling too, though I couldn't even hear what I was saying. Finally, I got sick of the chaos. All right, now shut up, I yelled, my voice echoing through the room. We vote, I said once it was silent. All in favor of running away, say aye. I said. I was joined by Aiden, Olwen, Alexandra, and Harvey. Well there we go, I said. Majority wins. We run. I looked at Jace expecting him to argue. To my surprise, he was silent, a look of grim determination on his face. We leave tonight, Aiden said. Tonight, Bailey asked, looking nervous. No, I said, something I overheard Kathleen saying running through my mind. We leave tomorrow night, after Morsi leaves. It was silent, everyone staring at me. Got it. Right, Harvey said thoughtfully. She leaves every weekend. We'll do it when she's gone. Good logic. Thanks Harvey, I muttered, my jaw clenched. Everyone good. I waited for the nod from everyone, then leaned towards the door. Everyone packs only what's absolutely necessary. We're leaving by hoverboard because that's the fastest way to get out, and we all know how to board. Good night everyone. With that, I left the room. The new arrangement was running in circles through my head. We're gonna run. I'm going to ditch Kathleen Morsi, the person who gave me freedom and this awesome power. Are we really doing this? Alexandra asked, running to my side. She had a look of excitement on her face. Yep, I said, sucking in a breath. It's the only solution. If Dr. Morsi is really taking over the world, then we have to do something about it. Alexandra said nothing. I gleamed at her, and she suddenly wrapped her arms around me. Thank you, she said. I sat there marveling at what she was doing, but just as soon as she started, she untangled herself and grinned at me. Good night, she said, then she skipped down the hall towards her dorm. Night, I muttered to her back, before continuing on my way to my room. I woke up to something wet and warm repeatedly rubbing against my face. Bright sunlight was filtering through the window, illuminating the inside of my eyelids with a bright red. And that meant that it was time to get up. Just a bit longer, I moaned, rolling over so my back was to the light. It was quiet, so I decided whoever had woken me up gave up. This is, until I heard a thump and the weight on my bed shifted. Next thing I knew, two giant paws were pressing into my arm and a slobbery wet tongue was all over my face. Eugene, I laughed. Get off, you giant dog. I sat up, and my dog jumped off of me, landing with a thump on the floor. What's the big hurry? It's only... I trailed off as my eyes found the clock sitting beside my bed. It's only 9:15. I promised Alexandra I would help her fix her bag today during breakfast. Crap, I scrambled out of bed and threw on some clothes. I ran out the door, sliding on my socks around the corner. I'm coming, Alexandra, I yelled as I sprinted down the hall that led to the dining hall. I ran as fast as I could, though it was difficult with my socks. I soon made it to the doors and threw them open. They hit the walls with a crash. Don't worry, I yelled, my voice echoing through the giant room. I am here, there's no need to panic. Alexandra giggled from her spot by our usual table. Oh good, I was so worried. I grinned and walked over to the table. Thanks, I said, plopping down in the seat next to Alexandra. It sure feels good to have someone who cares about me. Anytime, Alexandra said, popping a slice of banana into her mouth. Now, I said, pulling a plateful of waffles towards me and grabbing a bottle of syrup. I was thinking about what we're gonna do today, and I came to the conclusion that we must master the triple 360 on the hoverboard. The triple 360, Alexandra cried. I can't even do a single 360. Well then we'll start by teaching you a single free. Boo. I jumped, my heart lurching in my chest. And then out of reflex, my fist hardened into a solid ball of iron and swung behind me. I felt it make contact before I could stop myself. Ow, someone behind me cried. What was that for? I spun around in my chair to face my attacker. Harvey stood there holding his jaw, though there was a grin on his face. That was for sneaking up on me, you doof. Harvey's grin widened, and he winced with the effort. Well, that's what you get for being so scumming fun to sneak up on, he said, sitting down in the chair next to me. I mean, besides the part where you punch me in the face with an iron fist. I can't say I like that part. Well, isn't it just tragic, I muttered. Everyone at the table was laughing. Guess. You missed the price tag. Guess so, Harvey retorted, reaching across the table and grabbing a blender full of a smoothie. I rolled my eyes and went to say something snarky back, but then Olwen spoke up. Hey Harvey, she said, is your hair naturally that color, or did you dye it or something? That was a question I myself have wondered many times. If it was dyed, that'd be big trouble. And purple isn't your typical natural hair color, but he's living in this very compound with Kathleen Morsi, and he's still alive. Oh yeah, it's natural, Harvey said, taking a swig of his smoothie. Everyone in my family had it, besides my mum. I like to say that it was our family trademark. He grinned, but there was pain behind his eyes. I wanted to ask about it, but Alexandra beat me to it. She asked, what happened to them? Harvey's smile looked painful, which it probably was with that growing bruise on his jaw. Oh, well I'm here now and I'll never see them again, so. Alexandra seemed to accept this answer, but I could tell there was something off with the way he held himself. There was something he wasn't telling us. But I decided not to pry. It's not like it was my business. Anyways, that seemed to mark the end of that conversation. Soon Bailey, Aiden, and Alexandra got into a conversation about bullying or something like that. I didn't really care for the subject, so I settled for stuffing my face with waffles in silence. Hey Sage, Harvey suddenly said, growing bored of the conversation after a while. I think you're gonna get yourself kicked out of here. I eyed him suspiciously, all the reasons why I could get kicked out running through my head. There were a lot of them, but I don't see why he would speak them so freely in the middle of the dining hall. Why, his grin grew, and I knew trouble was heading my way, 'cause you're making all the other girls look bad. P11-12. I groaned and put my head in my hands, shaking it. You're an idiot, you know that right? Just then, I was struck with an amazing idea, and before I could give it any extra thought, I was putting it into action. I sat back up and scooted in my chair, getting as close to Harvey as I could without gagging. I cleared my throat and spoke in the most seductive voice I could pull off. Which wasn't really that seductive in hindsight. Do you want me to tie your shoes? When Harvey stared at me like I was losing my mind and it was kind of bothering him, I scooted a little closer and grinned. Because I don't want you to fall for anyone else. I could see the exact moment when the words clicked in Harvey's head. Then his face broke into a grin and he threw his head back, laughing. I've met my match. I scooted back my chair and admired my stack of half-eaten waffles. I looked up briefly and scanned around the table. Alexandra was laughing beside me, Olwen just looked mildly annoyed, Jace and Aiden were still arguing, Bailey was staring at Dario, and Dario looked horrified. I chuckled at the look, and then continued eating my waffles. At least I managed to make some people laugh. That day, she'd called us all to the dining hall at about 6 o'clock that evening, saying she had something to tell us. I will be leaving today instead of tomorrow like I usually do. Understood. We all nodded, and that seemed to be enough for her. Alright, I'll see you all Monday. And with that, she grabbed her bag and marched out into the garage hall. We all stared at the closed door, marveling at how fast she rushed out the door. After a while, Aiden muttered, "Okay then, should we get packing?" "Yeah," I said, my voice faint. I turned towards the doors out of the dining hall. "Everyone remembers the meeting spot." When everyone nodded I continued, "All right, well then I guess I'll see you all at 8. On that note, I walked out the door. As I walked down the hall towards my dorm for the very last time, I mentally said goodbyes to the closest place to my home. A place I'll never see again. "Bailey, do you really need all of that?" Bailey scowled and pulled one of the many bag straps further up her arm. "Of course I do. I refuse to go anywhere without this stuff." "What is this?" Aiden asked, pulling a large box out of one of Bailey's bags. "Is that a sewing machine?" Alexandra asked, eyeing the box in Aiden's hands. "Give me that," Bailey yelled, snatching the box out of Alden's hands and attempting to stuff it back in the bag. "Keep your filthy hands off my stuff, unless you want to lose them." "Bailey, pick one bag," I said, kicking a stray duffel bag back towards her. "You're not the boss of me," Bailey said, crossing her arms around her many bags. "Bailey," Dario said firmly, "pick one bag." "Ugh, fine," Bailey said grumpily, grabbing her biggest bag and rearranging the contents to hold some of the stuff from her other bags. I shot a glare at Dario, who just grinned back. Of course Bailey listens to him. "Okay," I said, once Bailey had kicked all her bags into the hall. "Are we all ready?" "Sage," Alexandra suddenly said, "what are you going to do with Eugene?" I took a deep breath, forcing my heart rate to remain normal. "I will not cry." I told him how to get to our destination and put him outside. "He'll find us eventually." Alexandra's eyes filled with sympathy, but she just nodded. "Yeah, we're all ready." Aiden walked up to the Mothic machine and clicked the input button. 8 engine-powered hoverboards and 8 pairs of hoverbands. Error appeared on the screen followed by, "You are unauthorized to possess such technology. Please try requesting something else." "Well crap," Owen said, reading the words over Aiden's shoulder. "Now how are we gonna get outta here?" "Step aside," I said, reaching into my pocket. I had prepared for this. I pulled out the tiny dark green chip that I always carried with me and held it close to my mouth. "Disable parental restrictions," I whispered. "What are you doing?" Alexandra asked, watching me scavenge around the Mothic in search of an opening. "I'm hacking the software," I replied. "Discovering a USB slot and stuffing the chip into it. That should do it," I said proudly, walking back to the front of the Mothic. I was just in time to see the word processing glint on the screen, before it was replaced with 8 engine-powered hoverboards and 8 pairs of hoverbands. "Whoa," Aiden said, his face inches away from me as if checking that it was real. "How'd you do that?" "Skills," I replied, smirking. "Is that an override chip?" Jace demanded. He was crouched over the side of the Mothic where I'd put the chip. I scowled at him, grabbing the boards that were sliding out of the machine and handing them to everyone. "Don't touch that. Is that all the boards?" "Yup," Alexandra said, snapping her hover bands around her wrists. "We're ready to go." I reached over, pulled the chip out of the Mothic, and slipped it in my pocket. I put on my own hover bands, my heart racing a mile a minute. "We're gonna get outta here. I'm about to leave the place I once thought of home, never to come back. My life after this is a matter of fate." "Let's go," I said. We walked outside, the cool night's air filling my lungs. I hopped onto my hoverboard, which swayed slightly as it adjusted to the weight. I waited for everyone to get on their boards, before speaking. "All right everyone, this is it. I'm gonna have Dario lead, then Bailey, then Jace, Alexandra, Harvey, Owen, and I'll be in the back." They moved into their correct spots in line as I said their name. "Got it. Sage," Jace said, almost timidly. "Can I go right before you?" I raised an eyebrow at him. He wanted to move. That kinda threw off my plan. I'm not sure that would be possible. When he saw the skeptical look on my face, he shifted on his board. Please. I sighed. I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world if Jace was in front of me. It would just mean that we have two weaker boarders in the middle. But so long as Dario pays enough attention, we should be fine. Alright, fine. You'll go right after Olwen and Alexandra will go after Bailey. Thanks, Sage, Jace said with more sincerity than I've ever seen him use before. I nodded and moved behind him. I don't know why it'd mean so much to him to fly in the back. There's literally nothing different about it besides who you're by. But whatever. Let's go, people, I said, the true weight of those words sinking in. We're leaving, for good. Doing this will mark the end of all of Dr. Morsy's trust. We'll never be welcomed back here again. I took a deep breath and forced my voice to remain calm. Dario, are you ready to go? Dario glanced back at me from the front of the line. He shook out his arms. Yup, let's do this. And before I could even mentally brace myself, the line was moving. I leaned forward and followed Jace up into the sky, my board aiming for a point just above the wall. And with the engine-powered boards, we'll make it over. We don't need the magnetic grid of the compound. At the last second, I glanced back at the shrinking compound. I could see the window of my room. The fairy lights that Alexandra installed were blaring brightly. I was leaving, and now there's no going back. Goodbye Sanctuary, I thought. Goodbye training, and goodbye Kathleen Morsey. I was about to look forward again, but then something on the ground caught my eye. A ridiculously tall, broad-shouldered figure was standing there, surrounded by the forms of several guards. She caught us, I thought. Panic started to flood my veins. She must not have left yet. Scum. I turned back around and was about to yell a warning to the others, when something hard came out of nowhere and rammed into the side of my head. I cried out and was thrown backwards with the force of the blow. I lost my footing and fell off the board, tumbling towards the ground. My gut twisted with emotion, and I flailed my arms around fruitlessly, a scream building in my throat. But my jaw was clenched so hard I don't think I could have made a sound. But just before I hit the ground, my wrists were aggressively yanked up by my hoverbands. There was a sickening pop from my left shoulder and unbearable pain shot through my arm. I cried out and slammed my eyes shut, not daring to look at my shoulder. It was broken. Or dislocated. I couldn't tell, and I'd need to open my eyes to be sure. But before I could orient myself, a pair of extremely strong arms grabbed me and yanked me out of the air. I yelled and struggled to get out of their grip, but my arm felt like it was on fire and it was useless. I had the strength to put up about as much resistance as a rotten potato. Well, came the terribly familiar voice of Kathleen Morsey. My stomach plunged. It was a similar feeling to plummeting towards the ground, actually. I was in so much freaking trouble. I opened my eyes and peered up at Kathleen. Her steel grey eyes were cold, emotionless. Trying to run, now are we? Did you really think you could get away that easily? The only question is, why would you dare run away in the first place? Even after all I've done for you. For me, I panted. Sweat was sticking my shirt to my back. My head was throbbing. The pain from my arm was bordering on unbearable and I couldn't move my fingers. In fact, I couldn't move my whole left arm. That wasn't good. I think you mean all you've done for yourself. We were just your toys of war. Morsey scowled, the look emphasizing the surgically altered features of her face. She had a startling resemblance to a wolf. You're a liar. You made up that story to get the others to follow you to the ends of the earth. And now you'll be punished. Up 11:14. Sagel, came a voice from above me. I glanced up to Alexandra flying full speed towards me, the others not far behind. Get them, Morsey commanded through gritted teeth. Jace nodded and zoomed up towards them at full speed, his fists clenched. I hadn't noticed him down here before. That filthy traitor was the one who hit me out of the sky. Run, I yelled with as much strength as I could. He's a traitor and he's coming for AAAAH. I cut off as the guard holding me grabbed my dislocated arm and yanked it behind my back. I cried out, the pain making white spots dance across my vision and forced tears into my eyes. I stared up at Alexandra. She had stopped moving and was staring at me with horror. I gathered the rest of my energy to mouth a single word. Run. Olwen reached Alexandra and grabbed her shoulders, pulling her backwards towards freedom. She shook her off, still staring at me. I could just barely make out the glint of a tear running down her cheek. Go, I croaked, my energy draining by the second. Jace was gaining. He was only a few yards away from her when she whirled around and flew full speed over the gates. I watched with mounting relief as the forms of my friends shrank into the distance, flying towards the horizon. Jace stopped before long, and flew back, a scowl on his face. He landed in front of Morsi and dipped his head respectfully. I'm sorry, mistress, I couldn't catch them. It's no matter, Morsi said, turning towards me. We cut off the head, now we wait for the body to die. I glared at her swimming form, feeling dizzy. The pain was really getting to me. It doesn't matter, I panted. Your puppets are gone, you have nothing left. Morsi grinned at me, stepping closer so I had to tilt my head up to look her in the eyes. You fool, she hissed. Did you really think that you're all I got? You and your little group of rebels are just the tip of the iceberg. Sadly, you won't be around to meet the rest of the group. She suddenly jumped at me, backhanding me across the face. My vision flashed and my legs gave out, all my weight falling into the hands of the guard holding me. I tasted the sharp tang of blood. Take her away, Morsi said, turning her back to me. I think a week in the simulation room will teach her a thing or two about loyalty. The guard pulled me towards the compound, my legs struggling to keep up. We didn't make it very far before my legs gave out altogether. I settled on dragging my legs on the ground to make this as difficult for the guard as possible. I was too weak to do much, but this was at least something. Evidently it worked. Would you cut that out? The guard said through clenched teeth, kicking my feet so they were pushed forward. I'd rather not, I muttered, my voice weak and probably dripping with pain. Fine then, the guard said, adjusting his hold on me so he was only using one hand. It was honestly quite impressive. Guess we're doing this the hard way. Before I could question what the hard way was, something terribly hard rammed into the back of my head. The last thing I remember was excruciating pain shooting through my whole body, before everything went black and the world was lost. Mercy. Mercy was the only thought that my brain could form. I needed mercy, I'd take it in any form. My friends coming to get me, the visions ending, a little pain medicine. Heck, death would be mercy at this point. The sound of a gunshot echoed through my head for the millionth time. My baby, live, do it for me, okay. Cold metal being pressed against my head. Guilt, the bang of a gun again. My fault, my fault, my fault. Over and over, there was no end. I had to kill her. Any rebellious thoughts and the gun will fire on its own then turn towards me. My powers weren't working. I was useless. Death would be mercy. Then just as sudden as the visions started, they ended. I gasped for air as my thoughts cleared. I was lying on my side on the ground, my face soaked in sweat or tears or both. My left arm was throbbing painfully and I still couldn't move it. I was blanketed in pitch darkness. A rumbling sound was filling the room and it came with a sense of déjà vu, though my thoughts weren't fast enough to place it before a blinding light shot across the walls. I squinted into the light as a headache quickly formed behind my eyes. A human-shaped shadow fell across me and it chuckled, well, you're doing better than the others usually do. No one's sanity has lasted this long before. I'm impressed. I glared at the figure, though it was still too bright to see anything. I almost wanted to say something snarky, but I decided against it, mostly because I knew my voice would be hoarse. Not talking, fine, don't, but talking or not, I got a surprise for you. I lifted my eyes to the now sharpening shadow of Morsi, dread starting to creep its way into my emotions. Anything Kathleen Morse is excited about means trouble. No, no, don't worry, she said, walking closer and crouching down so we were almost level. You like this one. Or at least, the beginning of this one. I'll give you a bit of backstory. She shifted her position so she was facing the wall and spoke in a higher-pitched childish voice. It was quite disturbing to be honest, so, you know Jace has been practicing his new ability for like, a month now. Yeah, well he finally perfected this new trick, and I figured what's a better test subject than my new prisoner. She grinned and stood back up, switching back to his normal voice. I hope you take a while to learn your lesson. This is mighty fun. I scowled at her back as she turned and marched towards the exit. She was right, I would enjoy this. I had a thing or two to say to that traitor-face Jace. Just when I thought it, the sound of footsteps different than Morse's reached my ears. And then Jace walked into the room, wearing what looked like $1 million jacket and gold-plated shoes. He was smirking and it was then I realized how weak I must look, curled up on the ground, covered in sweat and tears. Lookin' good, Sage. He sneered, then he laughed. Nah, I'm just kidding. You look absolutely awful. I assume that you've been enjoying yourself here. I glowered up at him as I came to the conclusion that I wouldn't let him and Morse win. I will always stand tall no matter what. With that thought running through my mind, I placed my right hand on the ground and with difficulty I pushed myself up to a sitting position. Jace raised his eyebrows but his sneer didn't leave. Please, I panted, forcing my voice to stay at least a little strong. Living in foster care was 10 times worse than this. Oh yeah, Jace said, I forgot you were in foster care before Dr. Morse generously rescued you. But I bet you could never forget that, given you're reliving the reason over and over in here. That's it, isn't it? Your greatest fear. He laughed, though it came out awkward and forced. At least it's somewhat dignified, I said, leaning against the wall to keep myself from collapsing and crossing my legs. What's your worst fear? Breaking the unfair rules of your precious Morse. Jace's sneer morphed into a scowl and he marched forward. Before I could question what he was doing, he reeled his hand back and backhanded me right across my already bruised jaw. An iron taste filled my mouth and my already sloppy vision flashed. Talk about Dr. Morse like that again and I'll do much worse than slap you. I sneered and thought about saying something like, well lucky you, seeing your ugly face makes pain feel like a pat on the back. But I decided my body probably couldn't take any more damage. Anyway, Jace said, standing up straight and brushing off his jacket like slapping me got him all dirty. I have some training to do, so if you don't mind. Actually, I do mind. So how about you go take you and your silly expensive clothes somewhere else? Feeling extra cocky, I leaned forward and spat a bloody glob on. Spit on his fancy gold shoes. Jace scowled at first his shoes then me. You're gonna regret that, he said through gritted teeth. I shrugged with my right arm and leaned back against the wall. Not much you can do to me now, I said. You have no idea, he said, and to my surprise his form started to shift. His hair lengthened and he shrank, his chest and hips getting wider. I blinked up at Jace, who now looked like Alexandra as a sudden realization hit me. Ooh, that is much better, I said, sticking one of my hands into my pocket behind my back. Why don't you stay looking like that? It's a lot more pleasing to the eyes. He glowered, and it kind of hurt seeing Alexandra looking at me with such hate. You're a fool, he said, don't you get it? I can make you see anything. I can make your arms fall off and snakes wrap themselves around your spine. Your brain's as vulnerable to my powers as a newborn child. I control you now. I sneered, starting to feel faint with my diverted energy, but I kept my eyes locked on the hazel ones of Alexandra. No, I panted, you don't control me. You don't control yourself. Morse controls you. You can get whatever you think you want, and you can train until your brain explodes, but you will forever be a slave unless you get your crap together and... I blinked against a sudden bout of dizziness, and joined the right side. You're wrong, Jace said, slowly morphing into the tall and broad-shouldered figure of Kathleen Morse, and you'll forever be wrong. You are just a silly, insignificant are you even listening to me? I blinked, pressing all my weight into the wall behind me. No, not really, I said. I'm spending too much of my energy shifting my hand into a pistol to pay any attention to your silly ranting. Jace's eyes widened as he slowly took in the meaning of my words, but he was too late. I had already pulled my arm out from behind my back and aimed the gun at his chest. I didn't give it any thought, I just pulled the trigger and quickly shifted my hand back into flesh. Jace cried out and pressed a hand to his thigh where red was already seeping through his pants. I had missed. He still posed a threat. Doesn't matter anymore, I just had to get out of there. Using the wall for help, I pushed myself up on my shaky legs. I took a step towards the door and immediately stumbled. I barely managed to catch myself. On the table sitting in the middle of the room. Okay, this is gonna be harder than I thought, I muttered to myself. Fridge, Jace, who now looked like himself, growled, you can't get away. Guards, get her. I cursed and grabbed the chair that was only a few feet in front of me. With great difficulty and a lot of pain from my left arm, I managed to use the chair as a walking stick and stumble out the door. Yay, I panted to myself, I made it outer the prison cell. Stop there, someone yelled from the end of the hall. I looked up to see a guard running at me full speed. Oh poop, I said. I was looking around for any weapon I could use that didn't require too much energy when Jace ran up from behind me and wrapped his arms around me. I hissed at the terrible pain in my left arm and struggled to get out of his grip. You're not gonna get out of here that easily. I gritted my teeth against my own pain as I leaned forward and dug my heel into the wound in Jace's leg. His grip on me loosened and I managed to slip out of his arms and grab the chair before I fell. Don't move, the guard who now had a gun trained at my head said. Put your hands on your head and get on your knees. I was about to make a comment about how I couldn't not move and get on my knees, but then something caught my eye. A tiny flame, swimming like an eel through the air. It was slowly making its way towards the guard. I realized staring at it will probably give away its position and swiveled my eyes back to the guard just as he said, get on your knees. What are you looking at? Nothing. Just staring off into the distance like. The guard cried out as he turned his head and saw the fire. It jumped, flying up and landing on the back of his shirt. He yelled, trying to bat out the fire but he couldn't reach it. It spread quickly, jumping to new places. Every time the guard managed to reach it, grabbing the opportunity with both hands, I threw the chair forward so it hit the guard square in the gut. The only problem was I just threw my only means of standing at the enemy. I yelped and placed a hand on the wall, catching myself. My head was throbbing more by the second, and don't even get me started on my arm. Sage, oh my gosh. I looked up to see Alexandra running full speed at me. She was wearing a dark green turtleneck jumpsuit and it was the darkest clothes I've seen her in. She was also wearing black boots that were coated in mud. Oh man, I thought, leaning against the wall, now I'm hallucinating. Either that or it's Jace. How am I supposed to get out of here when I can't believe anything I see? Sage, oh heck, what have they done to you? Are you okay? Why are you looking at me like that? Sage. I blinked at her. Gosh, she looks so real. No, I can't be distracted like this. Escape. I must escape. I don't need you right now, hallucination of Alexandra. I said, blinking as another bout of dizziness spilled through me. I just need you to get out of the way so I can make my very heroic exit. Alexandra blinked. What? No, Sage, it's really me. We're here to save you. I rubbed my head, sure I heard wrong, we. Yeah, you heard her right. We. I looked behind Alexandra to see Bailey standing there, wearing the same outfit as Alexandra. Her arms were crossed and a small flame was dancing around her head. Now let's go before Morsi finds out and sends her guards for us. I eyed them for a moment, then came to the conclusion that whether or not they were hallucinations I was still gonna follow them. Alright, I said, let's go. Finally, Bailey said, turning around and running down the hall, Alexandra on her tail. "All right," I called after them, putting my good hand on the wall and sliding my feet sliding forward. Walking wasn't an option. If I took either of my feet off the ground I'd fall right away. After a while they seemed to notice I wasn't with them and they turned around. "This isn't a joke," Bailey huffed, putting her hands on her hips. "We really have to get out of here." Suddenly I was mad. "Does it look like I'm joking?" I asked. "I can't walk. I don't think it's healthy to go however long I have without food or water." Bailey huffed. "Well then we'll just have someone carry you." "Who? It's not like you or Alexandra could carry me." "I got it," a voice said from behind me. Before I could register what was going on, my legs were swept out from under me and an excruciating pain coursed through my left arm. I yelped as white spots danced across my vision. That, I panted, was uncalled for. "Oh, sorry," Dario said, adjusting his hold on me to take some of the pressure off my arms. "I forgot about your shoulder." "How?" Bailey demanded. "It's the size of a cat." "Is it that bad?" I asked, turning my head so I could see Alexandra. Maybe not that bad," she said, the corners of her eyes crinkling with pity. "I mean, it is a little swollen but—" "Are you kidding?" Bailey asked. "It looks like you have a giant purple pillow stuck to your shoulder." "Bailey," Alexandra said, elbowing her lightly in the arm, "that's not very nice." "What?" Bailey asked. "It's the truth." "All right, you two," I said, leaning my head back as excruciating pain shot through my ankle. "How about we argue about this later? Right now we should worry about getting out of here before the guard or Jace wakes up." "Right, sorry," Alexandra said. "Let's go." "You ready?" Dario asked. "I was born ready," I said through gritted teeth. "All right," he said. "Don't scream." I clenched my jaw, closed my eyes, and nodded. With that, Dario hefted me a bit higher in his arms and took to running down the hall after the girls. The pain was excruciating. My head was swimming and a scream was building unwillingly in my throat. The run felt terribly long, and I had no idea where we were in the compound. I felt a sharp stab of guilt as Dario started panting, but I couldn't do much about it anyway. We ran into no one the whole time, which was kinda suspicious. But hey, I'm not complaining. Almost there, I heard Alexandra mutter. I opened my eyes groggily but could only make out a giant patch of light through my swimming vision. "We're gonna make it," Bailey said. "We can go back and live our perfect, Kathleen-free life." Dario stopped suddenly, making another stab of pain shoot through my arm. I hissed, clenching my jaw and blinking away the white spots in my vision. "What? Freeze." That's exactly what I did. They found us, I thought, trying to clear my vision so I could see exactly what we were facing. Jace must have woken up and told Morsi. "Sage," Dario whispered, his voice full of caution and unease, "I'm sorry, but you have to stand by yourself now." I blinked up at him, testing my vision, then looked around. What I saw nearly gave me a heart attack. The whole compound was surrounded by guards, and they were pointing their guns straight at our heads. "Ah, right," I said, my mind whirling in many different directions. "Lex, would you mind helping me?" Alexandra nodded and walked over to me, never taking her eyes off the guards standing in front of us. Dario set me feet down and I wrapped my arm around Alexandra's shoulder. "Don't move," one of the guards shouted. "We have you surrounded. Lay on your stomach and put your hands on your head or we will have no choice but to fire." "Don't move," one of the guards shouted. "We have you surrounded. Lay on your stomach and put your hands on your head or we will have no choice but to fire." "I'm not doing that," I muttered, swaying on my feet. "I can barely stand and I can't move my left arm. Y'all gonna have to find something different for me to do." "We will tell you one more time," the guard shouted. "Lay on your stomachs and—" Yeah, we heard you the first time," I said, putting as much power behind the words as I could muster. "Have patience, punk, we're getting there." The guard scowled but didn't say anything. Bailey lowered herself on her knees and laid on her stomach, though she looked as if the guards had ordered her to cut off her arm. Dario wrapped his arm around my waist, and with his and Alexandra's help, I managed to get myself on my knees. "What are we going to do?" I whispered. "Does this rescue party just consist of you three?" "Yup," Alexandra muttered. "We were hoping to keep it more along the lines of a stealth mission." "So much for that," Bailey hissed. "So what are we gonna do?" Dario asked. "No talking," the guard yelled. "The scientists will be here soon, and when they do come you all will let them do their stuff or we will shoot." Is it bad that I really do believe that they'll shoot? I thought to myself. They'll probably go for Alexandra first and go for me last, so I have to watch them all bleed to death. This is bad, this is bad, this is so very bad. Alexandra was muttering. "Hey," I muttered, "on the bright side, if we get captured we won't be conscious or even alive to see our friends die in an attempt to save us." "Wow, that's very reassuring," Bailey grumbled. "Thank you for that." "You're welcome," I muttered. "No talking," the guard spat. "Dr. Tran has arrived, and you will show no resistance to him or we will shoot." "Well, it's not like I could do anything in this state," I grumbled angrily, shooting a sideways glance at my swollen shoulder. "Ah, good day," came an oily voice from behind me. "I am very excited to be able to perform many tests on you all. Although, it would have been more fun if you would be willingly performing your powers, but this will do. Now, we'll start with Mr. Dario, I think. Hold still, would you? Wait, this is not. Do you hear that?" I asked, trying to lift my head far enough to look up. Strangely enough, everyone went silent, looking around and searching. There, two black dots in the sky, quickly making their way in our direction. With it came the pounding sound of thunder, echoing off the walls of the compound. "What is that thing?" I muttered, watching the figures get closer. "Intruders," one of the guards yelled, "and I think they're armed." Just as the words left his mouth, the bang of machine guns rang out, and a shower of bullets rained down on us. I yelped and covered my head the best I could, but the bullets weren't coming for me. "Get down," a guard yelled, dropping into a crouch under a tree. The crowd burst into chaos, guards scrambling around. Some were trying to grab their guns and shoot at the intruders, others trying to run for the compound. Despite their efforts, the guards were dropping like flies, and soon the ground was covered in bodies and blood. The noise was so loud I couldn't hear my own thoughts. I couldn't see what was going on, and whenever I tried to push myself up, the pain in my arm would switch from excruciating to unbearable. "Let's go," an unfamiliar voice called. "Eliza, you came," Alexandra yelled over the noise. "Oh, course I did, you Nimrod. Now hurry and get in before more C calls back up." Guys," I called, "what the heck is going on?" "Right," Dario muttered, "we'll explain on the way. Brace yourself." He didn't really give me any time to brace myself. He just hooked his arms around my shoulders and hefted me up. I cried out as my vision faltered, terrible pain shooting through my arm. "Really, dude," I panted, "there was a much better way to do that." "Sorry," Dario said, scratching the back of his neck. "She'll suck it up," the unfamiliar voice said. I looked up to see a girl with fiery red hair in two braids and a pale face dotted with freckles. She was standing in one of the flying things, which looked like a giant black egg with a tail and spinning black blades on the top. "Let's go, people," Bailey cried impatiently, climbing into the flying device and beckoning to us impatiently. "Right, working on it," I said, wrapping my good arm around Alexandra and stumbling towards Bailey and the stranger. After a while of painfully slow and agonizing steps towards the flying device, I managed to get myself in and sit down on one of the benches that lined it. I was dizzy and the pain was starting to weigh on me. Alexandra sat next to me, with Dario on my other side. Bailey and the redhead sat across from us, their jaws both clenched and heads turned away from each other. "Mark," the new girl said, "we're ready to go. Let's get out of here." "Sure thing," said Mark, a balding man sitting in the front of the flying thing. He jabbed a few buttons and flipped a few switches and soon we were rising into the air. It was terribly loud, but it was worth it. I was getting out of here. Finally. Sage, Alexandra said, it's gonna be a very long and bumpy ride. I recommend you fall asleep. It's less painful that way.